All right. There we go. Okay, coming to you from the shadows today, we're going to be talking about invertebrates. Before we start to go through your notes, let's talk about some basic things about animals that you should have a pretty good sense of. So first, let's just talk about the animal kingdom. So what I've done is I've broken this down into two main parts. The animal kingdom is basically made up of invertebrates and vertebrates. So we've talked about that before. Animals with a backbone would be vertebrates, and animals without a backbone would be invertebrates. So what do you think is going to make up the largest amount of animals? Vertebrates or invertebrates? Anybody surprised? 95% of all animals are invertebrates, meaning they don't have backbones. Only 5% are vertebrates. That's what we are. Okay, so we have backbones, but only 5% of the animals in the animal kingdom have backbones. A little surprising. The animal kingdom, if we talk about the vertebrates, we're talking about one phylum. So kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. We're talking about the phylum, and the phylum that we belong to is Chordata. And there are 5 classes in that phylum, and they are reptiles, amphibians, fish, birds, and mammals. And these are the 5 classes of vertebrates you have to know. The invertebrates have 34 phyla. Vertebrates have 1. Invertebrates have 34 different phyla. And they include things like sponges, cnidarians, segmented worms, mollusks, arthropods, and echinoderms. There are more. These are just the ones that we have chosen to go over this year. So we have 6 invertebrate phyla that we'll talk about, and we have 5 classes of vertebrates that we will discuss. Another thing that you have to understand is this word symmetry. When we talk about symmetry, you've heard this term probably in math class. And symmetry means the same thing in science. It's making one side of an object, does one side look like the other side? Okay, so like mirror images. Okay, so in science, we talk about basically 3 different types of symmetry. Those different types are asymmetrical or asymmetry, radial symmetry, and bilateral symmetry. So real quick, let's just look at what these are. So you have asymmetrical organisms like this, and you can't really divide it and make it look the same any way that you look at it. It's kind of all over the place. So if you're looking at an object and you can't see where if you divide it, it would be the same or close to being the same, then probably you're talking about an asymmetrical animal. Radial symmetry is when, like the spokes on a bicycle, you've got all of these different planes radiating out from the center. So if we look at this from above, you would be able to see that there are several different planes of symmetry. And so you can break that up into lots of different segments, like the spokes on a bicycle. So radial symmetry looks like that. Bilateral symmetry is the one that you're probably most familiar with. You take an object, draw a line down through the center, and it's basically the same one side to the other. Okay, so this is an example of bilaterally symmetrical organism. Now if you look, you notice that this claw is bigger than that one a little bit, so it's a little off, but basically just like us, if we were to draw a line down the center, we would basically be the same one side to the other. Not exactly, but pretty close. So the 3 types of symmetry again: asymmetry, radial symmetry, bilateral symmetry. And you have to know all 3 of these. So here's another example. Bilateral symmetry would be able to draw a line through this elephant, and it would basically be the same. Notice here in the center, everything is the same around it. So if we had several planes going down through the center, it would be symmetrical. And again, this one, no symmetry or asymmetry. Again, radial symmetry, bilateral symmetry. Same, one side to the other, bilateral symmetry. a shovel, draw a line through the middle. Basically it's the same, one side and the other, bilateral symmetry. Okay, so if we were to see what we could do here, this looks like it radiates out from the center. So I would say radial symmetry. This looks like it would be about the same if I were to cut it in half, bilateral. This would definitely be bilateral symmetry. This one is not the same if we do that. So asymmetric, draw a line right down the center, bilateral. This would be pretty close to bilateral, be about the same. This one, it's not going to be the same, asymmetric. See if you can figure out what these are going to be.